Begins maybe in high school, where my dad was sick with cancer. It was, senior year of high school. He passed, unfortunately, and that was just a tough time for us. Very different transitional period.
Welcome, everybody, back to another exciting show of the About That Wallet podcast. I am your host, Anthony Weaver, and we are here talking about the sandwich generation, helping them build strong financial habits so that they can talk about money, spend money, and enjoy their money. I have somebody who has a great story, especially coming from a sandwich generation who has traveled pretty much across the world. Got so much information. I was able to meet him at FinCon this year in 2025. How you doing today, Michael?
Doing well, Anthony. How are you? Thanks for the awesome intro. Thanks for having me on.
And thanks for coming up to me and telling me about, your story. And I was like, man, this would be a really great opportunity to kind of get your story out there, because a lot of people could be impacted by this or going through the same exact thing and just don't have somebody that's actually living it to share their story. So if you could just kind of talk about, how it is when you were growing up to help your parents out to where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say my story begins maybe in high school, where my dad was sick with cancer. He had cancer. I was so young back then. I didn't really understand the gravity of the situation, but obviously I have a couple of brothers and sisters, and they're a lot older, so they kind of understood a lot better than I did, and so did my mom, obviously. But senior year of high school, he passed, unfortunately, and that was just a tough time for us. Very different transitional period. My mom is a first generation here, so she doesn't speak much English, if at all. I mean, it's okay, but that's tough to navigate, because she leaned on her husband, my dad, to do all of that stuff, take care of all the life logistics, finances, just living. And so my sister was she was 27 at the time, so younger than I am now. But, even that's a young age to take on a lot of the responsibility. She managed the funeral, she managed transferring the assets, and understanding who's the beneficiary of all my dad's assets. Looking back on it, it was kind of impressive how he kind of set us up for success in terms of, he had life insurance, he had 401k, luckily he was a federal worker, he was a postman, so the benefits in terms of health insurance were really good. That covered and set up my mom really well, and me until I was 26.
Wow.
But all of that was set up nicely, but it could have been a completely different situation if my dad, didn't do that. So, I'm forever grateful for that. But, my sister, for maybe 5 years, she handled the family / my mom's finances and all of that. And then I guess slowly over time, it kind of transitioned to me handling it, because, she started having a family, and she was just busy with other stuff. And then I was still living with my mom off and on, so I was a lot more readily available. Before I would shrink away from the situation, and I don't know, say, oh, it's not my responsibility. But then over time, I took over, and I was like, okay, it's actually better for everybody, myself included, that I handle this. So
what year was this when it happened?
This was 2010. My dad passed, and kind of started.
And then when you, by the time you took over the estate, so you're looking at about what, 2020?
Yeah, I guess there's no hard figure. I guess maybe 2018, 2017 is when I started taking more responsibility, mentally, I guess, and just being there for my mom a lot more, in terms of just simple stuff like translating letters, statements, even making appointments for her to go to the hospital to get checkups, stuff like that. Yeah, I guess around 2018, I started taking over and understanding who is the benefit. My mom's the beneficiary, but then after she passes, who becomes the beneficiary after that, and how does that work and all that.
So do you guys set up a trust and everything like that, or just kind of just passing on the assets, transferring name to name?
Yeah, passing on the assets. One thing I don't have yet, but probably should have, is a will, a formal will where she can pass over everything. But like stuff like her house, like where she's living now, it's technically her house, but actually it's under my sister and my name. So legally, I guess it would be passed down to us, or it wouldn't be passed down because it's already technically ours legally. But stuff like that, the 401k, it gets distributed to my sisters. I mean, like her life insurance gets evenly distributed, and yeah, I don't know, like I guess other assets like her car and stuff, like that's still up in the air because there's no will in place. But
Yeah, I mean, but that's really good that, that you're able to take that on and your mom and dad actually put in place to make sure that everything is transferable and everybody has a say. Because a lot of people that are listening right now probably don't even have that in place or even started having those discussions. And it's sad that it takes a tragic, a family tragedy for that to start happening. But it's like people do pass away every day. And it's like, why aren't we picking up those lessons learned that we kind of wish would happen after they pass and be like, man, I really wish they put my name on this, or I really wish they would have shared the password with this. And so it seems like it's been ingrained in you at such a young age to really carry on, I guess you'll say, the legacy of what your parents had put in place from, coming over. And I have to say, like, commend you on the strength to really keep pushing on through such tragedy.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, tough time, obviously, like going through high school, graduation, and then like into college. So it was tough, but over time, you just kind of pick up the pieces. But I'm thankful for the support system too, because like my mom, my brothers and sisters are a generation older than me, so they have a lot of life experience that I learn from and lean on. So like yeah, our family could have been a lot worse, but we're fine, luckily, with each other. But yeah, like you said, I mean, not everybody has that, sort of luck, and maybe they don't plan for it, and things can end up badly. I mean, my friend had his mom pass away, and she wasn't as organized as maybe my family, but it took, for instance, like I guess him to get it off the estate, or like get the estate in his name, like a year almost, like from the government, because it went to probate. And it was like a really messy time for him, but I mean, he got through it eventually. But a lot of that stuff was kind of a wasted time, I mean, if you had designated people in place, and a will.
Yeah. I wouldn't call it so much luck, in a sense that you put in the work. Like, you don't downplay that you put in the work for it. Because that's one of the things about luck is like you took advantage of the time that you had and really thought it through and, took action. So that's the only thing about luck. It's just kind of like everybody can look at it hindsight 2020. Oh, that was so lucky of you. No, you actually just put in some work. Like, you didn't see the tears and the rioting and late nights and trying to put this together.
True,
So,
yeah. You're right.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I give you your props. But that also turns into like, how did that impact the way how you move in society now to actually running your own video production, doing all this stuff and traveling to so many different countries? How has that impacted the way you move now?
Yeah. So money was always on my family's mind, and it wasn't like a taboo topic, right? Everybody has like a slightly different perspective, obviously. Everybody's different, but the same thing was like, hey, you work hard, you work smart, and you get money, you save money, and you also invest in it to do whatever you want to do in life. So I guess it was like around college where I, I saw my like older brother. He's a big like hero figure for me, but he traveled a lot, and I was like, how does he do that all the time? Like, how does he have the flexibility to travel so much? And I remember my sister saying, like, yeah, you just have a goal and you focus on it and you work at it, right? And if you want to travel, then you make that your main goal. So I studied abroad a couple times in college. I was in London. I went to Hong Kong and did internships there, and I really got a nice taste of like the work and travel lifestyle, but like the slow kind of travel. Like you're there for at least a couple months to really soak it in. And I got addicted to that kind of lifestyle while I was in college. That was definitely the highlights for me. And so after college, I was like, how do I do this? back then when I graduated in 2014, remote work wasn't really a thing. But with COVID and the pandemic, obviously it became more common. But it was so uncommon to have like a company and work for them remotely. So I decided to start my own freelancing business or for whatever that was. But 2015, I started. I was like, okay, I'm going to try to do this. I found Upwork, and I was like, oh, so like all the transactions, the emailing, everything's online. There's not. I don't meet the client or anything like that in person. I was like, okay, let me give this a shot. And so, yeah, I mean, I had student loan debt. So I was like, okay, let me try to tackle the student loan debt, and save up some money so I can start traveling. And it wasn't really until like 2 years later where I paid it off and saved up like a really small nest egg. And then I had a couple clients. And I was like, okay, let me try to go to Japan because I've always wanted to go to Japan. So I did that. And then I don't know, I still kept doing it.
So talk about that. Take us back to that first day of signing up for Upwork. Like, what was your product? What were you trying to?
I was just trying to sell like, hey, I do video editing services for anybody, and it was tough. I mean, like you have to send a lot of proposals. So
Okay.
basically, clients, if anybody nobody knows what Upwork does, clients list job postings or projects they want done and completed. So then freelancers like us, we see those projects, and then when we apply to it, we send in a proposal, a cover letter. They get to see our profile, kind of like LinkedIn, and then they interview the best candidates and eventually choose the best candidate for the project, for the job. And so it was a lot of months of just hammering away at cover letters and trying to get good at that and trying to position myself as a video editor, like a fresh college grad video editor, I guess, that didn't have too much life experience, but I had enough, I guess, video editing experience.
Yeah, because we all got to start somewhere. So that's why I was asking. It's like, what was that first project when they finally said yes?
Yeah, it was strange. It was for a course creator, an online course creator on Udemy, and he partners with different kind of freelancers that are specialized in different kind of trades, and he helps them build a course. I basically he helped me map out like a course on how to teach people how to use Premiere Pro to video edit, and I don't know, he didn't pay me that much either for now that I'm thinking about it, but he would get all the royalties from the course itself, but he would pay me a flat fee of like $200 or something to produce and edit and just do the whole course on how to get started in Premiere Pro. And I don't know, I just got that because I applied to so many, and eventually he got back. He was one of the only clients out of maybe 100, dozens of clients that, got back.
Well, that's one thing that you learn early on is not to take no for an answer. Just keep moving.
Yeah, definitely. Because I don't know, when you hang on to something like a dream, like, oh, I want to really travel, you're just so stubborn. You're like, you just kind of have to you push through it, at least in the initial phase. And I knew this wasn't going to be easy because I feel like nobody has done this before, or at least in my world, at least nobody has done this before. So it was going to be very different. It's going to be very challenging.
So maybe your next class could actually teach people how to become their own freelancer.
Yeah, could be.
So because I met you at FinCon, so what brought you to FinCon in the first place? I mean, I know we chat for a hot second after coming to my session. And obviously I saw you in passing. But so what brought you there?
Yeah, it's a FinCon. My One of my biggest clients, his name's Coach Carson, and he's been to FinCon for maybe over 10 years or something like that. But he loves FinCon. That's how he started off as a real estate investor, and then a coach to teach people how to invest in real estate. But then in order to build an online presence, he went to FinCon to gain a lot of knowledge and mentorship and meet with other content creators in the space. So he's always told me like, hey, you should go to FinCon and meet other creators. And then this year especially it felt like the right time to try out FinCon because I decided to pivot my business and try to service podcast content creators who wanted to grow their podcasts, right? And he said, you know what, there's a lot of podcasters at FinCon. They're in your space. You'll find all the clients you want there if you network properly. I was like, oh, okay, let me give it a try. And he's like, you know what? Let's take it even further, and we'll speak there as well. I was like, okay,
Nice.
cool. So we did a session on how we grew his podcast, his YouTube channel from 0 to 130,000 YouTube subscribers, and we kind of go over the systems on how we did that. But yeah, that's what brought me, like, just networking and trying to get more clients. But I don't know, it was a lot of fun. I got a lot of friends, honestly, and
Nice.
just amazing conversations, just meeting other people like you, hearing your story. I mean, with you, it was just like, oh man, I love, meeting Anthony because he's like an introvert like me, and he's shy, but like he's just so cool and down to earth. And I met a lot of people like that at FinCon.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, a lot of us are introverted. Trust me, I guess you could say it was too many people at once that I really wanted to just kind of run away afterwards. So it was but it's one of the things that I always like to go back, honestly, just to give back. And I enjoy meeting new people like yourself and really seeing like what are you doing that are differently out in the financial space, or even just different ways to make money to help somebody else to figure out like, hey, I can actually do this too. And that's the reason why I like to do this show and do my podcast, is to kind of showcase like, hey, you know, there are some things that people hear about but never thought to actually dive into. Even like you said, just going through Upwork just because so you can travel. Like, and now you're doing real estate as well. Now on stage, and it's like you're doing all the great things now. So it gets you to think of like, what would it be for you as to take things to that next level for yourself? Like, where do you see yourself in the next, I should say, 5 months from now?
5 months. Okay, yeah. So I mean, we were going to cover this later in the last session, but one of my biggest money mistakes I made was in the last 3 years, and I'm kind of at the tail end of it where I got into a good amount of debt, but yeah, I'm paying that off right now. So like in the next 5 months, it'd be like that being paid off and going back to investing and growing my nest egg back, basically. Because in the last, yeah, like 3 years, I took, yeah, a few steps back, I would say, and kind of undid a lot of the foundations I had built up in the last 10 to 13 years.
Like, why was that a hit? What happened?
Oh, okay, yeah. So I mean, this could be like a whole episode, but I haven't been very public about this, but we're here now, right? I mean, I might as well tell it anyway. Well, yeah, only a few people know about this. This is something that's very personal, but
If you
I
don't want to
took,
share it, I
yeah,
don't want
I
you
would
to.
love to though. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm ready to share it because I saw the question. I was like, you know what? Yeah, I want to be honest about this. But a few years ago, I trusted this general contractor who was fixing my house, and I'll keep it short. But like, I got into like a business with him, wholesaling goods and stuff like that. And it turned out, I invested a good amount of money, like six figures worth. Actually, the business turned out to be, he just turned out to be a crook. Currently, he's in jail right now, and my lawyer's trying to figure out things like maybe get some of that money back. But you know, I got into a good amount of debt, personal, business, and credit card, to like jumpstart the business in a sense. It turned out to be not like a fake business. I mean, it was a hard time like the last 3 years, but it gave me a lot of perspective on my psychology and like my behavior on money, in the sense of like in the last 10 or so years, it was always focused about saving and like kind of not spending enough on myself, in a sense where I would kind of just suppress that desire to spend, or like just enjoy my money a little more. It kind of bottled up into like an unhealthy, when there was an opportunity to spend, I would just go crazy. Like, this was like me releasing that outlet, in a sense. Like, okay, like a new business, it's exciting, I can make a lot of money from it, but like I'm also having that outlet to spend money, and it was very unhealthy. But like, maybe I needed to go through something like that to really learn that lesson about myself and my habit around money.
Yeah, very expensive lesson.
Very expensive lesson. Yeah, very expensive. Um, it just kind of it reinforced the fact that like I can almost go through anything financially, and if I stick with it, I can find a way out of it. Because I'm at the point where I'm paying off my basically my last card. Um, of like yeah, it's around like $12,000, which isn't that much. I'm almost done it. Like probably will pay it off like next month. But
Awesome.
yeah, it was a crazy time. But it made me realize like, okay, if you just stick with it, like you'll figure out a way and you'll get out of it.
Yeah, because that's one of the things that even though it was an expensive lesson, I think we all go through it. Some of the things that we have to splurge on, and it helps us to realize like, hey, we didn't do our risk assessment like we were supposed to. We didn't
Right.
ask the questions. We didn't look at the red flags. Things looked a little too easy.
Too
It's
easy.
just right.
Exactly.
So, what are your new questions now if somebody asks you to join in a business venture?
It's an automatic no, at least until you prove me yes. But it's definitely doing due diligence, right, on the person, like seeing what I guess their social history is about. Like, what have they done in the past? Would be a great start. And then, no, I guess, yeah, doing the risk assessment, right? Like, just asking them, like, what could go wrong, and like, what, if you were to pass, asking the hard questions, like, if you were to pass, or if I were to pass, like, what would happen then with any venture? But yeah, at least for now, it'd be like a no until you really prove me yes.
I totally understand. Because if you notice, like when you fill out my intake form for my show, trust me, it's a lot of years of interviews and people forgetting things and leaving things out. And I was like, I'm automating it, got to do the intake form the proper way, even if it's got to take a lot more questions than your typical intake form. But it helps me instead of doing back and forth of trying to get the information. Um, and so, like, that's my lesson learned.
I love it. I mean, the Calendly reminders, I've been reading all of them, and like some of them are different. This one's like what's included in the standard guest experience. Oh, you will publish your episode around 4 weeks after because we got to do production, 30-minute interview, promo highlights, all that stuff. And I was like, oh, that's great. I need to implement that with my client. This is automated system, like very clear. I don't have to really, I don't have a lot of questions.
Yeah. And that's
Nice.
it all comes from experience. And that's one of the things that I talked about during the during my talk was to say is the importance of actually being around like minded people and having that space of really ironing things out because that's where we go to grow. And I like the fact that you not just after that big incident, you're now still investing in yourself, really wanting to learn and push yourself to that next level. So with this third segment, because we already kind of in the future space, but where do you feel as though that you need to focus on to improve yourself or to take yourself to the next level?
Yeah, for me, it's just continually analyzing my spending habits and improving it. Right, my girlfriend's a big proponent of value-based spending, and she's teaching me more on that. Like, hey, if you really want something, you can spend the money and allow yourself to buy it. Right, like, that's a very simple thing, but like a big hurdle for me, like mentally, to go over, because I've been so used to just saving so I can get to FI and all that. But she's working it backwards, where she's saying you can enjoy your money as you live on, and be spontaneous about it. And she's teaching me that. I feel like that's the healthy balance that I'm trying to get to. And with the incident too, it's just like, you know what? Yeah, like if something were to happen to me, like who cares like how much money I've accumulated if I didn't get to enjoy at least a small portion of it. And that's not to say like you should spend all your money at while you have it. It's balance saving and enjoying and living life.
That's good. So what was it that something that you did a value spin that you recently purchased?
So I mean, like for me recently, I just signed like a 6-month lease here in Vietnam, And, I was so focused with the apartment. I was so focused on like the price and like getting the cheapest like apartment because I didn't really care about the space.
Right.
But, you know, my girlfriend and I we're looking at different apartments, and, I was just fine taking like a closet if it was like going to be really cheap. But like she was like,
Yeah.
no, like we got to keep looking. And we found this amazing apartment, like the apartment I'm in right now, where it's like it was newly built like last year. There's cleaning service twice a week,
Nice.
which is awesome. There's a view of a beautiful garden outside. We have like a little balcony where you can look at the garden and then like look at the tallest building in Vietnam. It's really cool. And then I don't know, yeah, it's just like a pleasant space to be in. But like maybe if I were by myself, like I would have just taken like the closet like for nothing.
Right.
So yeah,
But
I
I'm
feel
sure you're
like I
happy
spent a
now.
little. Yeah, I'm really happy with this place now, and we're both really comfortable. But like, just paid a little extra, um, to get a big, yeah, big boost in value.
I'm happy for you, man. So, is there anything that you want to leave the listener before we dive into the final four?
Yeah, it sounds cheesy, but like if you have this idea or something you want to do, just try it at least in small doses because you never know where it could lead. With me and freelancing, I never thought I could travel. Like if you told me this like 15 years ago, like I was in college, like I never thought could have this lifestyle where 15 years later I'm living in Vietnam permanently, but I go back to the US, a few times a year. And I'm able to do that because I just took a leap. I made a lot of mistakes along the way, but I just kept pushing through it and continued being stubborn and just kept figuring out a way.
That's awesome. Yeah, because a lot of us don't have that stubborn mentality, or if it's stubborn in the wrong direction.
Sometimes, yeah, sometimes I'm stubborn in the wrong direction too. So we're all human.
Yep. All right. So, you ready for the final four?
Yeah, absolutely.
Alrighty. Well, the final four questions are the four questions where we actually ask everybody at the end of the show so they can get to learn a little bit more about them and their financial values. So, question one: what does wealth mean to you?
Yeah. So wealth, it kind of comes in three phases. For me, it's like the ability to generate income that isn't dependent on you, like working so much, working on full time or having your constant oversight. So that can be passive stock investing, that can be real estate investing, that could be having a business that operates continually without your constant oversight, your full-time effort. So having income coming in. But then the second part of that is like you have that income coming in so you can free up your time and do what matters to you. Well, whatever that is, that could be volunteering, that could be spending more time with your family, or playing more sports or whatever it's important to you, right? That ability, that time flexibility is part of the wealth. And then the third part is like having it be sustainable enough to pass it down to somebody else, your kids or whoever, family members, friends. So for me, yeah, wealth is in those three stages.
That. Number two: what was your worst money mistake?
Well, yeah, we had a little section on it, but just kind of being scammed for six figures really, really grounded me, and yeah, it taught me a valuable lesson. But the biggest thing it was like for me, like, okay, I would never do something like that to anybody, first of all, and then like second of all, it's like no matter what happens to me or like how hard things may seem, I went through this problem, and I managed to solve it. So it built a lot of resilience for me.
Awesome. Number three: is there a book that inspired your journey or changed your perspective?
Yeah, so I see in your background you got Crush Your Money Goals with
Yeah,
Bernadette
yeah.
Joy. I got that copy too. I've been reading that, but I'm in the middle of that. That's been great so far, but I'm in the middle of it, so I won't count it. The other book is Profit First by Michael McKelowitz. I think that's how you pronounce it. But that's been a great book. That's, I guess, more lean towards business, but like the principles of buckets. For me, with my business, I have like 5 accounts. One's for salary, for the employee, which is just myself. One's for the business expense. One's for the incoming sales, the income. One's for the taxes, so you can save on taxes, and one's for the profits. And so like when you get income, once a month, you distribute all that income separately into the, the different accounts. And that helps. I'm a big organization nerd, so that help. It just clicked with me, especially like, oh, that makes so much sense. Like it's like putting, video assets into their separate folders, like this is like putting money into their delegated account. And I felt like that really organized my finances a lot simpler way that I could understand personally. So it was a big part of my journey.
Nice. That is a good book, though. I have to reread it because it does switch the way how you do business.
Yeah,
does it make sense to even be in business or not?
And it's applicable to personal finance too, because everybody at FinCon was talking about like putting it into buckets. And I was like, oh yeah, that is like profit first, putting whatever you allocate into that separate bucket. And that way, that separate bucket is what you use for that separate thing.
Number 4, what is your favorite dish to make?
Okay, favorite dish. This is going to be a very simple one, a very underwhelming one, but this has been a dish that was one of the first dishes I ever made as like a kid, and I learned. And it's simple. It's just cooking rice and then cooking eggs over the rice. So you cook rice in your rice cooker, and then depending on my mood, I'll do scrambled or over easy, sunny side up. And then literally you just fry the egg, get the rice, and then you fry the rice as well, but like separately from the eggs. Put it on a plate, and then drizzle ketchup over it. And it's like a meal that for me that I can eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and I can still eat as an adult to this day. But it's a very simple meal.
That is awesome. I noticed most of the guys have simple meals. They're like the most simplest creatures. It's great.
Yeah. Very low maintenance.
Right.
Simple creatures, functional, practical.
Yep. All right. So the very last question of the show, which is, where could people find out more about you?
Yeah. So I'm on social, on Instagram at Take This Trip. But the best way to get in contact with me would be my email at info@takethispodcast.com, where I help podcasters grow their podcasts. But yeah, I'm very responsive over email.
You're really good at that because email is like second nature. It comes later. So
yeah,
the background.
Totally get it. Yeah, I mean, email get flooded, but then you just gotta organize it.
You and these buckets. I'll learn from you one day. Well, thank you, Mike, for coming through on the show. Appreciate your time, sharing your story. And for those of you who's listening right now, and if you found this information valuable, you stuck to the end, that means that you actually saw something really cool. Michael's story was amazing. So go ahead on and take a moment to like, subscribe, share this out to somebody that would actually take advantage of the advice that was given, or even just a storytelling perspective. Listen to this with somebody that you enjoy listening to podcasts with. I had a great time listening to this episode. Definitely going to have a great time sharing this out. So thank you all again. Remember, you only can put one shoe at a time. You will trip trying to put on 2. So thank you, everybody. Y'all be out.
Thanks, Anthony. Appreciate it.